What I'm going to do now is pass it over to Max, who will introduce himself, and then we'll let him go for 20 minutes before we can fire away some questions. So over to you, Max, and thank you again for coming. Mihi.
Lovely. Look, and thanks for the warm welcome, everybody. Yeah, my name's Max Whitehead. Again, I just love coming back here. You guys just make me all feel very, very welcomed, and I just feel like I'm part of the gang already. So it's just nice to be here. Thank you. And it's the warmth that you exude, and I know it's a pleasure, absolute pleasure. Just going on a bit further, yep, I'm Max Whitehead. I'm originated from Taranaki. I come from a small town called Eltham, and I stayed there for the first 23 years of my life. Did a motor mechanics apprenticeship, and then wandered off to the big world of Auckland, and stayed there a night, and then went off to Los Angeles, and it was quite an experience. And then into London, and off to the North Sea Oil, and I worked up there as a 23-year-old. So I spent some time up there, and then come back. You miss your family after 2 or 3 years up there, and then came back, and then ended up living in Australia for a long while and working in the oil industry for a few years there. Had a lot of experience in industrial relations over there. Caused some trouble, I must admit. So I'm not the most loved Kiwi some places, but it was all for good stuff. Really found myself there because really I was married at that stage, but also I found myself as in terms of employment relations and wanting to help people and get in behind them. So I actually took up a union leadership role, which to a lot of my clients would be shocked, and led quite a big strike on the Shell oil refinery in 1984, and became quite famous overnight. So anyway, it caused a lot of trouble in the marriage as well, because I was giving more time to my union than I was to them, and that strike particularly was very costly for me personally, but we got a success, and it wasn't over money, guys. It was over safety, and we got extra manning as we wanted. But anyway, moving on, I then moved into a small business up in Queensland. I had a little snack bar up there, and again, I was to be the very generous employer with my staff. I immediately upped their pay enormously and jumped in there and thought I'm a big timer now because I'm a business owner. And wow, did I get a shock. It was only a few weeks later I realized that I'm actually earning less than the staff were, and the reality hits you, and then you've got to then attract your clients, and you've got to get your customers, and wow, the learning curve was horrendous. And in the end, I sold the business much for what I purchased it for. But again, the learnings from the union movement and scrapping and fighting with Shell to and working up in the North Sea Oil, some really hard men up there. Two guys died on that oil rig when I was there. To then going into running a business thinking I'm a big timer, then realizing the reality, man, you just get leveled because you got no money, honey, and you've got to get real. I came back to New Zealand, and I took up a role at the freezing works in Waitara in Taranaki. Went home. In other words, I went home. Marriage had broken up too. And with that, there was a huge learning curve too, because what they said, we're employing you because you understand union stuff and you're from the region, Max. But this is a 3-chain freezing works, so people understand that. And your job is to make the staff redundant. Oh, wow. It was hell on earth. And that means really the devastation of Waitara. Very, very difficult times. And one thing I did do, with the permission of the regional manager, I wasn't the big man. I was the employment relations manager. I was the in charge there. But certainly with the help of good management, I engaged with the local marae. I engaged with the local priests and ministers. But we drew it all together, and we had a community team. And it was devastating for the community. But one thing about it is the local freezing works took responsibility for that as well. And big redundancies were paid. The local marae had visions of starting off forestries and all sorts of things, and everyone combining their income. But unfortunately, that never happened. People went off would rather buy a boat and a caravan. So it just didn't happen. But again, amazing learning curve. And then I ventured off into employment relations and went up and joined EMA at Hamilton. EMA is like a union for employers. So I changed sides. I moved on to employers, and I was then. And then eventually, long story, I'm in a number of employee jobs, Feltex, Auckland City Council, the Ports of Auckland, just dealing in conflict all the way. And I'm really quite happy with that. I really love my enemy usually. That's why Vaughan and I get on so well. We can debate, but we actually love each other in a lot of ways, but it's good stuff. But it's that respect that you've got to learn for your opponent as well as the person who stands beside you. And then, you work through it to win your battle, which may not be it shouldn't be personal. It should be win the battle for the good of the people that you're representing. And from that, I've had big learnings in life. And now I'm in my 60s. I draw on that every day with giving advice to employers, giving advice to workers. I represent both sides of the fence, but my core driver amongst that is fairness. What's fair? And I'll say to workers, even on the radio on Sunday, I was on ZB on Sunday for an hour, and I said to those workers, you've got a lot of power because employers can't find people, but don't you dare abuse that, because these poor employers have lost a lot recently. They've got nothing hardly, and you can squeeze them for more money if you want to, but you know what? They might fall over. So you need to be with them on this journey, and you need to drive carefully. So, those sort of balancing you need to share with people and learn from. And look, one thing I'm learning is I'm probably watching politics quite closely as well, because it's very similar to industrial relations and relations in workplaces. And it's the balance of power. And of course, we might have national, which, favor employers, you might say. Then you might have employees, the Labor government we've got now, which is really favouring employees. But I've never seen such a swerve so much to one side. And there's so much legislation to come. The average person like you guys out there probably not aware what this government have really got planned. What they call fair pay, guys, is going to be hell on earth for employers. And those sort of things. Is it fair? No, it's fair on some, and some people it'll be privilege. And so these things, you don't sit comfortably with me, and I feel a natural instinct to go to bat and to fight for people. And the ones that have suffered the most through this COVID is small business. And that's why, again, Vaughan and I have got a great friendship, because we both care about small businesses quite significantly. And that's why we spend our hours and hours of our time for no reward, but just to look after those small businesses. Now, the good thing with me, I've got an occupation that says that if I go to bat, I should be getting paid. So that's a good thing for me. And I've got a business now where I engage a lot of people to do a lot of the dirty work. I had a battle with cancer last year, and I got to say, I won that battle too. So it's good. But one thing I've learned from that is don't do all the hard work yourself, brother. You got to get in and share it around. And while you want to be the man and be responsible and be important, that you've really got to share that as well. And that's what I'm hoping to do tonight, because what I want to do is share some stuff that I know and share it with you guys so that you can be better employers and have better businesses and learn from that. But, I'm not arrogant enough to think I've got all the answers. So you pipe up tonight, please, and tell me when I'm wrong, and I'm welcome it. I really sincerely welcome it. You can tell me wrong. I put up with your friend here, Vaughan, and he tells me when I'm wrong very quickly. And we both appreciate that. So is that my 20 minutes, or I need to go a bit further?
No, that's all good, Max. We can make up that time. And awesome for sharing your story. I myself know a lot of my family went through the freezing work, so I understand some of the struggles you would have had to succumb to letting a lot of those people go. One thing I just wanted to ask, Max, and sort of just touching on what you were saying before around some of the impacts, legislative changes that are coming up. What are some of them, if you can share, that might impact small business?
Oh, the significant changes, because the whole ethos of our existence in small business has changed. We were learning that through COVID. The fact that we've forcibly been shut down was harsh penalty, and we got a little bit of assistance from government, but mainly it was to make sure that the workers were fine. We got a little bit of resurgent payment to make sure that we could just keep our doors open a little bit. But in terms of that, also now it's the afterflow of this now, and the government still wants to have control over our businesses, and they passed legislation last week, and they passed it under a hurry, and also it's multiple pages, guys. I just printed off one of the sections today because I got asked a simple question, and you know what, I couldn't answer it. But look, that's just if you can see this. But it's just the piece of legislation. It's 180 odd pages here. And the question, you wait for this. Hey, Max, I own a food business, I have staff. And the question I've got for you is, I've got to banish people coming into my business. I have to by law, I think. And I'm not happy about doing that, but I've got to do it. But one of my staff members is not vaccinated. Do they have to be vaccinated? And you think logically, well, yeah, of course they do. But I said, let me have a check. And he said, you're the first one. So, okay. And he's asked all this, he's gone to things. And he said, a lot of people can't tell me what I'm supposed to do. It was in this piece of bloody stuff here. It took me an hour to find out. It's seven resources, 7 areas of that piece of legislation. To go to that one, then it refers you to another section. Then it refers you to another piece of legislation and then bring it back again. The complexity of this alone. And it took me ages, and I was so pleased to bring him back and say, no, you can't. It's also got a definition of what it says about your customers. They all have to be vaccinated. It didn't say anything about workers, but later on it says a person also has to be vaccinated and can't enter your business. So that obviously means the staff. But what I'm saying is this is garbage. I've got some experience in reading this sort of stuff, and I was going to say BS, and it's complicated, difficult, and every small business is supposed to know this. And that's 180 pages that the government got told, hey, I want you to accept this overnight and to sign it off. And They did. They had to because they didn't have enough time. And you small business guys got to know every page. The law says you got no excuse for saying I didn't know about that. That's unreasonable. Wow. And I think I passed with you last time the requirement that you've got to have your QR code up there. Well, it's embroidered in here even more, but as I mentioned, it's already in an order, and in that order it says the penalty could be 6 months jail. Incredible stuff, and there's all sorts of things in here. It describes what businesses are going to be compelled to have to ensure that they serve only people in their business which are vaccinated. Then it tells you there's others that you must be forbidden to question them in regards to that. It's not easy, and it's it's very, very unfair on small businesses. So we got to wade through that. But I'm getting the impression that the government departments are being told to be on standby, make it hurt for business because we've got to make an example of them. And I mentioned last time, I feel that a lot of small businesses will probably ignore a lot of this law. And folks, if you're out there, I don't blame you for doing this. Because what's going to happen in time, we're not going to even know the difference between a vaccinated person and an unvaccinated person because the majority of us are vaccinated. But the unvaccinated person is going to be wandering amongst us. And after a while, it won't matter because we're all vaccinated and won't hurt too many. But it will if we take it off to a loved one who's older or compromised. And that's a bit harsh. But it'll end up like Australia. In Australia now, you can go to a bar, restaurant, whatever, and nobody asks you anymore. If you're, can you please show us your passport? Well, that's not happening. But right now, it's fresh new legislation here, and I think Jacinda's looking to make an example of some poor business, and let it not be you. Just let it not be you. In a few weeks' time, you probably be forgiven. But right now, let's just try and behave it. I think keep giving the impression you're abiding by it all.
Yeah, thanks for that, Max. So, I'm just for our new people who have joined us. What are the 5 key takeaways from that document that small businesses should know about, Max?
Well, in terms of that, it's Matt. You've got to find out whether your business is mandatory required to only serve vaccinated people or not. The other thing you've got to find out is can you have the right? And most businesses do. There's only a few of them. And they're listed here, and there's a few of them. There's hundreds of them if you go into the details, and I don't want to read them all out to you, but certainly you need to find that out first. Are you one of those named businesses? The next thing you need to do is to go into your business and have a look at the risk profile in terms of what would how risky is it for you to have a non-vaccinated staff member and to have a non-vaccinated customer. So it depends a lot on your work, you know, how close you interact with people. Do you interact with them at all? You know, with my business, I actually see very little of people. I actually do it all online. So it doesn't really worry me if anyone's vaccinated or not. And I've got a whole range of staff, probably 5 or 6, that never come here, and they operate from home. So it's very easy for me. But everyone's circumstance different. You might have a cafe or a corner store or whatever it might be, and you've got to interact with people directly. And so the rules are going to be a lot different for you. So first thing to do, if you do have some worries, is to do a safety assessment on every job in the workplace and assess whether there's a degree of risk of interacting with somebody who's not vaccinated. And the risk is, can that person pass it on and pass it through your business? And you're supposed to do 2 things. Now, the courts have already decided that an unvaccinated person is a risk. So you don't have to make that decision anymore. And, well, I think a lot of us are going to be kind of immune to that because with time, as I mentioned before, we're going to get used to non-vaccinated people around us and the vaccination being right in our neighborhood. As we mentioned today, Vaughan and I, it's probably in my street, and I care? No, I'm just look after myself. Yeah. Whereas my family in Taranaki are terrified, absolutely terrified, and keep saying to me, "Oh, you're not thinking about coming down, are you?" It's almost that, "Don't come near us, brother. We don't want you." And my good mate Vaughan was saying that he went to a funeral down and he felt like he was the leper because he was from Auckland. And so, you know, us Aucklanders are used to it. The you people out there who are not from Auckland, down in other parts of the country, it's quite concerning. So anyway, let's get me back to it. Sorry, I drift off. Assessment of your workplace, very, very important. Now, then you've got to set a policy. So your policy may well be at the end of that you want everybody vaccinated, including all your customers. Anyone that enters your business, you might need that. Or you might be like me and don't give a hoot. Because it won't matter, but I can make that assessment because I don't interact directly with people. So you need to make that assessment and you need to have a policy. So there you go, safety assessment, a policy, and I've narrowed it down to 3 majors. And then you need to do make sure that if you've got staff, as most of us, you guys probably have, you need to really consult. And what that means is take them for the journey with you. Talk to them, say that you're thinking about making a policy. What's their views on it? Oh, I think we see some risks here, guys. What's your thoughts? And while you can listen, you've got to listen to them, and you should listen to them because a lot of them, some of them are brighter than us, big-time business people. But they will give you good feedback, but also they might give you some rubbish. So you've got to decipher that, and you've got to work out. In the end of the day, you're going to be held accountable and responsible. So the decision ends up being yours. But consultation means you take them for the ride and you listen to them and you consider their views. And because some of them will lose their job. And today I just found out a big news, I think, is the Auckland City Council probably going to lose 500 staff because they've declared it's non-vaccinated, only 500 people. You know, I think they've got 8,000, I think, is their total.
11,000 max.
11, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's incredible.
So they're short-staffed, clearly.
Yeah, well, and the other thing, Vaughan, we've talked about this before, the health industry, the teaching industry, they're going to lose some very, very important people. So those are 2 industries we can't afford to lose, teachers and nurses, but we're going to lose those. My view is there's going to be egg on the face in about April because I think no one's going to care. And they could be working, yet we're going to be, compromised in our society.
Yeah.
Getting back to it, guys. Do a safety assessment on your jobs. Make sure you have a policy and make sure you consult. Those are the 3 things I think have really, really come from this. And beware. This piece of garbage here, which is very important, is the law. And there's consequences if you don't follow the rules. That's what I'm here to help you with.
Thank you for that, Max. It'd be good if they can do an executive summary on the website. That would help small businesses a lot if they'd done that rather than shuffling through those pages. I'm just going to open it up to the panel, to the Poari. Any questions from the Poari? Vaughan.
Yeah, I've got one or two. Hey, Max, Anadu from Palmerston has sent an email and he said he understands that employers must pay out 4 weeks notice period if staff have to be terminated. He's got a fleet of trucks and if he has to terminate staff because their role requires them to be vaccinated. So these trucks go to supermarkets and they drop groceries off. So clearly he has to be vaccinated. What he's saying is that he's actually doing it tough. Does he have to pay that whole 4 weeks out in one hit, or can he pay it out weekly over 4 weeks for his cash flow? Legally, how does he stand?
Well, this has been by the way, irrespective of what your employment agreement might say, you might have a notice period of 1 week. And but the government have gone and overridden that by saying you've got to give them 4 weeks notice. But there's even worse penalties here, guys, because at the end of that 4 weeks, and it's anticipated that some people are going to abuse this privilege, if they go and get vaccinated on their last day after 4 weeks holiday on pay, they get to come back to work. And that's written in legislation. So that's even harsh. Answer your question, Vaughan. Do they have to pay? Can they have to pay it all at bulk or 3 weeklies? If the person is leaving immediately, I would suggest that they don't pay it bulk. I think they pay it 4 weekly because those people can come back. And if they come back in 2 weeks, well, then you've only lost 2 weeks' pay. If you pay it all in bulk, I think you're going to lose money. So I would pay it off in 4 weekly payments if you could, or when you normally do your pay run. I think it would be wiser to do that. But bear in mind that they can come back, and that's pretty hard. That's really hard, particularly if Christmas coming up. That's another bloody few weeks holiday on top of that.
He's actually jammed in 2 parts of the question. The other one, he said he's got 14 staff, and he said that does he have to redo all the employment agreements, or can he just provide them with a cover letter telling them that their employment agreement has been updated at a certain clause? So what communication does he have to do? Is it a brand new agreement that's got the vaccination recognised, or is it just a communication process between and then an update of the employment agreement? Does that make sense?
The law is that every employment agreement is to be in writing. And it doesn't go too much depth into thereafter. But if there is a variation to that document in any ways, it has to be in writing. So my advice could be, particularly in large workplaces, and they do this frequently, they might do a one-pager out to everybody and saying, we're going to introduce a new, a new requirement because of COVID, blah, blah, blah. Please sign the bottom of it and return it to you accepting this as a variation to your employment agreement. And you've got to send that out and seek people's agreement to that. So an employment agreement's like you buy a house. You don't have the right as an employer to change the price of the house or any party. You just can't do that. But if both parties agree to a variation on the price, then you sign it off. And that's exactly the same as an employment agreement. You've got to record the fact that there's been a variation and that's put in. So if you want to introduce a new clause, guys, you're going to have to get the agreement of the worker and have it put in place.
Yeah. I've had another one come in, but is there anyone else out there on the floor that's got a question to ask? Because this one's come all the way from Dunedin, so down the deep south, where the goblins run. So we better let them have a go.
Yeah, over to you, Uncle Pete.
Yeah, Max, just a question. We're struggling a bit with our rugby club with the pass and things like that, and what we've found is how we keep the information. Like if someone gives us the information regarding their vaccination status, how we keep that information, how we keep it secure. Do you have any recommendations of how businesses and clubs, people keep that information secure?
Well, normally what you should have is a privacy manager of a sort. So what you've got to do is appoint somebody who is in charge of all the private matters. And that person then is personally accountable, and for the whole business, for the whole club, for your rugby club, and has to maintain that and understand the rules quite significantly. And because there's quite a few rules with privacy information.
Absolutely.
There's a bit of irony here. Now, you might have heard this in the media because it's incredible. They passed this legislation at pace. And it said, what people's vaccination status is private and you're not to share it. This piece of law here I've got here says that every business has to put on to publish for their clientele their vaccination status. So there's a complete bloody contradiction of rules there, and it's really it's wrong. But anyway, I'm confused. I can't get advice in terms of what would win there, but I would certainly think if you've got a required to notify staff, because a lot of businesses want to put up, and I believe the Department of Labor even have published these signs saying this business is fully vaccinated, and so you can buy it off the government, or buy, I don't know, they might even hand them out for nothing, and yet it's in breach of the laws which are covered by the Privacy Act and in pieces of this legislation saying it should be confidential. So there you go. But look, in terms of that, I would say no, don't name individuals. Keep their information to themselves unless they agree for you to share them. And look, it's in a business interest right now, while people are nervous, to say whether you're a vaccinated business or not. And the legislation goes as far as saying if you're not, you're still to tell people. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't. But it's just the way it's going to be. And who's going to police it is the WorkSafe. In fact, my partner just reminded me tonight. What is that fast food company? What they says is they want the staff to come and work for them that are unvaccinated. So was it ribs or something? They do ribs. I can't think of it. That's how I remember them, because they do some flash ribs. But anyway, what's that?
Lone Star.
That's it. Lone Star.
Hey, Max, that's weird, because one's just come in here from a guy who's put his name in inverted commas. So it's Rob from Pukekohe, in inverted commas, which clearly his name's not Rob, and he's not from Pukekohe. But anyway, he says he's a fencing contractor, and he's saying that his staff work up to 50 metres apart at all times. But he also says he cannot get staff and he cannot afford to lose staff. So he's going to continue employing unvaccinated staff because he's had them for a few years. He's prepared to take the risk. So, Max, what sort of thin ice is Rob from Pukekohe skating on? What are the consequences for Rob if someone dobs him in?
Rob, if you're legitimate, some of us know a little bit about fencing, and when you live on a big steep hill somewhere, you got to take those strainer posts up the top there. It's going to be on a tractor, and I don't think anyone's going to lug them up on their own. So there could be a few of them on the tractor. But look, if that doesn't happen, it's only one person on a tractor lugging up the strainers, and quite often the farmer will do that and leave them out for the fencers to come in and do it later. It's possible. So look, I think there's no problem there, Vaughan. I think if they're awesome, confident, those guys can be working separately, apart, and when they are together, they keep their moderate distance. Is it 1 meter to 2 meters? Wear a mask, those things. Well, I think you'll be pretty safe, and just keep the rules on though, and that's why policies are good. And I tell you why policy is good. If that WorkSafe come after you, and you can drag out a bit of paper, which will be dusty. No one's read it, but you've passed it around, showed the workers. They go, yeah, good, thanks, boss. Right, got it. If you've got that bit of paper, you can show you've done the work in the hard yards, and then put it away. Hey, by the way, I was going to finish the story before about Lone Star. They went to the public. They told the world that they were going to employ all these unvaccinated people. I tell you what, they got a visit from WorkSafe. Yeah. And they had to withdraw all their comments and their notice and their offer of employment for people. And so I think the WorkSafe are pretty I was going to say lazy, but they're not going to get around to visiting you unless it's public or it's embarrassing the Prime Minister. I think they'll just pick on the easy people, and that'll be the bigger businesses, those that are making too much noise. So Vaughan and I are in trouble because we'd make a lot of noise, but certainly for the rest of you, keep your head down a bit. You might get away with it, but it's a risk you need to assess whether it's worth taking. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Max. Before I
Max, you mentioned the unions earlier. Sorry.
You go, Pete.
Yeah, you mentioned unions earlier, and I had a bit of experience with them in Australia as well, and they're a great bunch of people. They've got a bit quiet lately. They were a little bit outspoken last year, but I'm concerned that unions have gone quiet over the last at least 4 or 5 months. Are they repositioning themselves, or are they changing their view on this, or what's your feeling?
Oh, Pete, that's a good question, and I really don't know, because they when the government first come into being, you're right. They attacked them and said, later we were demanding all this money. We want this, we want that. And of late, they've gone very quiet. And that guy Wagstaff, he's in charge of the CTU, which is a combined union. Is it combined? Combined union.
Yep.
Good combined trade unions. Anyway, he only a few weeks ago said that all businesses, the minimum wage should be lifted to the living wage. I think I mentioned this last time to you guys, and that was very generous of him. But thank God the government haven't done that. But I wouldn't be mind betting it's coming up. But that's going to affect us small business people hugely. But in terms of that, you're quite right. They've gone quiet, but I believe that they're fully supportive. Most of the ones, the teachers' unions, those are unions, are fully supportive of getting everyone vaccinated, and they've been behind the scene, behind everyone to try and get it done, which, you know, a merit to them. But yeah, I'm with you, Pete. I think it's almost scary when they go quiet. You think, frig, are they planning or bending up something? But if that fair pay system's coming up, you're going to see unions probably swell, I would say, 30 times bigger than they are now.
Yep.
They've got hardly any membership now. But there's the other one that will be virtually the same as compulsory membership for every employee in New Zealand, including executives.
Yeah.
No, I'm the same opinion. And one thing I did think about is we don't have a lot of variable bonuses or variable payment systems here. You go through Asia, there's all sorts of bonuses, variable payments that go right through the organisation. But we don't seem to have adopted it here. And I'm just wondering, you know, sort of the minimum wage is one thing, but if you're paying for performance, you're paying on outcomes and results. Surely that's a better way of doing it. We talk about our productivity, we talk about our efficiency, but if we link that to the minimum wage, people can earn beyond that.
Yeah.
And
But to be fair, Pete, you know, everybody talks about productivity and outcomes, but no one makes it happen. So how do you measure that? They're just words. You know, it's like, you know, so the New Zealand is a low wage economy because of that, because we can't make it happen.
But Pete, I do agree with you. I think incentive payment is a good driver to get productivity up and get people's effort up. You know, I understand that New Zealand's New Zealand's behind in productivity. We're shocking in the OCDE. I think we're one of the lowest, if not the lowest.
Yep.
And I believe it's not because of Kiwis are lazy. It's not because we're tired. It's because we don't have a lot of the new technology, and we're also small businesses. So we're hands-on. You know, we're brothers who get together and we use our innovative. We use our brain, and we can get things done. But we haven't got the big conglomerates that come in here. That we've got the masses of big numbers, and we'll get a mass factory and robotics going and all those things. We struggle a bit with that, and the Aussies are probably better at that, I would think. But that's a nation of unionists, so Australia, because they were built on the union movement. Bob Hawke was a union member, and Eureka Stockade was a big thing over there. So if you know Australian history, Pete, you look like a man of my age group. So there's some really good fun over there. There's been some good fun.
Nice.
Max, if I can share a short story with you. I was part of a leadership team. I have to go to Australia each month for these meetings. And they always talk about this thing called an RDO. And like, what in the hell is an RDO? But it was a huge issue. And it's a rostered day off. So once I understood what it was.
This piece of law has got the CBC in here. And it took me ages to work out what the hell that was. I couldn't work it out. I had to go to the definitions, and it says, I don't even think it was in the definitions. So I had to think, what's the CBC? Well, you know what it is, don't you? It's the vaccination test. You know, it's the passport. Yeah. Well, you'd think I'd know that, but no, CBC just didn't get it for me. Yeah.
Wow.
So I do know the RDO. That's an old favourite one. Yeah, and I worked in Australia. I worked in when I worked for Shell. I worked shift work, so RDOs were very, very famous then. To me, it was nuts and bolts. Those RDOs, I loved them. It's a day off.
So that vaccine pass, Max, that vaccine pass, Max, I noticed today our esteemed Prime Minister has thrown 37 million in Auckland City so people who with a vaccine pass can go to the zoo and see the meerkats. But Christmas is coming up, and, you know, people are going to be running around with a skin full of alcohol trying to get into bars with no vaccine pass. What sort of position do you foresee small businesses over the festive season trying to manage who's coming in and out of their businesses, vaccinated or unvaccinated. Because you can imagine what it's like, right? Someone's going to be out the door, 4 or 5 mates, they haven't got their pass and they want to come in, and you've got an 18-year-old minimum wage staff member trying to stop them or whatever. Can you see that getting a bit ugly?
Oh, absolutely. And the guy that rang me today asked that simple question, which I found very complicated to find. But he said he's got that same problem, Vaughan, where he's got this piece of legislation says that they're not allowed to let people in their business, and they've got to have a process in place to prevent them from coming in if they're not vaccinated. So that means, all us small business guys, we're going to go and put someone on the door. Well, that's not going to happen.
No.
And practically, it's impractical. It's just not possible. And for them to pass a law like that is just annoys me, because what they're going to do is find some small business which is going to mess up, and there's going to be COVID flushed out of their place. And unfortunately, I'm sad to say this, but then they'll go back and prosecute them for not stopping people coming in their door who are not vaccinated. And God, that's just unreasonable and unfair. So we've got some harsh things ahead of us, Vaughan, and our small business people, we're tough and we can put up with it, and we've got harsh things we manage now. And most of us wing the law. We have to, because we don't know it. My job is to try and help you as best I can here, and any lessons I can learn, I'll pass them on to you guys. And I think it was someone said before, if I could put something up on paper from time to time, every time I learn something more, that would be helpful. And so I can try and do that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Max, for that. And before I open it up to all our other participants, so I'm going to ask circle back to one of your statements. But before we circle back, if anyone has any questions, either put them up online or get ready to put your hand up and ask. But I just wanted to circle back, Max. You were talking about privacy. And I think you spoke about, there was another matter you spoke about, but what I wanted to just ask, and I know you mentioned it a while ago, was around health and safety. So regardless of human rights and health and safety, human rights and privacy, health and safety trumps that. So I just wanted to, if you could elaborate a little bit more on that for our participants, especially those who are in small business and might be struggling with staff who are talking about human rights and privacy, etc.
Oh, yeah, look, it's really good we revisit this, and look, we haven't touched on it today. So, thank you for a good question, because a lot of people in our society are saying the Bill of Rights, we're in violation of the Bill of Rights. This government's in violation. Every business is in violation, and that's not fair. Well, in fact, there's been 4 high court cases, 4. And what's happened is that people have taken a swing. What's her name? Sue Gray, I think, took one, and there was there's been a few others now. And what they're trying to say is the Bill of Rights should trump the health and safety and should be more important. Now, the first case that went through, the High Court really just dismissed it because it was very poorly put together by the lawyer. The second one, Sue Wright got it. I got to say, she probably didn't do a high grade job in terms of presenting it, and the court sort of made a bit of note of that. But they said they thanked her for bringing it to their attention. They wanted to deal with it seriously and sensibly. And what they said, no, there is a competition between those two, the Bill of Rights and it's Health and Safety at Work Act. That's the full name of the legislation. But when it comes to people's safety, the Health and Safety at Work Act will overtake it. And there's some sections in the Bill of Rights, Section 4 and Section 3, which they used on that, but they said it's not an automatic right. You need to come back to the court when there's matters like this, and we will address them. So they identified a couple of previous cases when they've had to make decisions like this. But the Bill of Rights, let me just elaborate further, and this is why it's such a good question, says that a person cannot be coerced or forced into taking I can't think of the exact words, but certainly into taking some medication or having something in their body. And that's where people are very, very upset that there's a lot of pressure on them right now with businesses as well, saying you don't work here, you've lost your job unless you get vaccinated. And what the court says. No, there's risks involved with this vaccine, this virus, and it's got consequences which will could affect their whole nation. And with that, it's appropriate that health and safety trump the person's right in this regard. So they still have a right to say no to vaccination, but the employer has a right to say you don't work here. So and look, while I'm on that, do you mind if I just labour this a bit further, because it's one of the learnings I've got from here, and it's a new one that we need to cover. So in that legislation, in the new legislation, it's also covered the Employment Relations Act. That's the baby that I deal with every day. That's the one about personal grievances and things like that. They've amended that, saying an employer can dismiss an employee if they are not vaccinated. But then it comes the big but. But must be a business which is it's at risk of if an unvaccinated person comes in, and the business has concluded and done a thorough safety assessment. So there you go. That's what I mentioned before about the thrusts before, how important it is. And also the big one that's going to cause, it has already caused a case, which is done. Folks, don't rush into a dismissal. Get some advice, because you've got to go through an arduous process. And most of you know it who've been through these before. You've got to go and tell the employee, hey, you've got to so-and-so date to get vaccinated. If you don't, you could lose your job. Put it in writing, folks. Send it to the worker. Make sure it's abundantly clear. Talk it over with them. And then that date comes up. You go, look, you're still not vaccinated. I'm going to have to give you 4 weeks notice. And you've got to tell them this. During that 4 weeks, if you decide to get vaccinated, we'll be paying you while you stay home. You can just suddenly get vaccinated and come back to work again. And that's why I suspect that some workers could perhaps wait to the last minute and then suddenly go, well, maybe I need this job. I can't afford to go about pay after this. So, I wouldn't mind some spending money, or maybe I'm just on Christmas holidays then. So I'll come back and then take my Christmas holidays, and maybe then, I'll try it. So, there's these sort of things we need to be aware of, but don't rush into a dismissal, but you have the license to do it to some degree, but there's process around it.
Thank you, Max. Thanks, Max. And, whānau, there's a lot of wisdom there and a lot of advice that, to think about before rushing into making some big decisions. On that, I just want to open up to the rest of the floor. If you have any questions, I see nothing's come up in the chat. If you have any questions, hands up, and we'll spotlight you in.
Matt. Sorry, I should remember your name, Max. Matt from Point Chef is asking a question. One of my staff has a genetic disorder, and that means she is allergic to the vaccine. She has medical records to prove that, but she works for me. I own a beauty therapy, and she works in close contact. I know her personal position financially. She cannot afford to lose her job. What do I do?
Isn't that sad?
Wow.
It's just and again, there's some irony here with what's the government's done, because the government in some of the health industry, if a person can get a what do you call it, a dispensation order by the doctor, what do you call it, clearance to say that they cannot get the vaccination, then this piece of legislation says that they can return to work. Well, that's crazy. An employer cannot risk an unvaccinated person, particularly hairdressers, which are touching their people in close proximity, from passing on the vaccine. So, unfortunately, Matt, was it? I think
Matt. Yeah, Matthew. Matt.
Yeah, Matt. Unfortunately, you're going to have to let that staff member go. In fact, what I would do, if you value that person, perhaps put them on some sort of leave for a while, and maybe unpaid if you can come to an agreement with your staff member, because obviously you value them the way you've spoken about them, I think, in the question. And I would say to them, look, if you're prepared to wait with leave without no pay, then I'm prepared to hold your job open, because we're going to see what's happening in the future. And my view is in about March, April, it won't matter. I think we're going to find that the majority of our population, well over 90%, vaccinated, you probably can come back, but let's wait and see, and hold them in abeyance. But the facts are you could dismiss that person. But look,
The
hairdressers are hard to find right now, and they're really hard to find.
Anything close contact is hard to find. But, you make such a good point, Max, about learning to live with COVID. And, you touched on it before when I told you when I went down country. And I swore, I thought that I was a leper with scabs all over my forehead, because as soon as I said I was from Auckland, people assumed that you were infected with COVID. And yet, I had my double vax and my negative test and all that sort of stuff. But Auckland has become like the East Berlin of New Zealand, and that's why the government has got it so wrong. But it's that whole what you just said there about learning to just live with it, and that's the next phase we're moving into, I guess.
Yeah, well,
and us in Auckland are getting more and more familiar and feel more comfortable living with it. But the rest of New Zealand isn't, and that's where they see us as a leper colony being let loose on them. So I'm not prepared to go and meet my brothers and cousins down in Taranaki for a while, because they'll probably beat me up. I hear they've beaten up people down there already. So, believe there was some people out there doing the vaccinations, and they got chased out of town. There was assaults and all sorts of things going on. So it's pretty hard life down there. I tell you, there's real stuff down there.
I just want to circle back. Vaughan, is that the first time you felt like that?
You had to throw that in, bro, didn't you? But all joking aside, Renata, when I went to the marae, I could not get over how disciplined and military-like everybody were protecting the elders. Like they were bringing them in, because you only can go in groups of 100, and there was like about 3,000 people came over a few days. And what I couldn't get over was how serious they took protecting the whānau. Yet if you read the newspapers, you would think that Māori are the problem with the vaccination rollout. And I was just looking at it and going, wow, it was quite phenomenal. And because, here in Auckland, we've just been so used to being locked down. I was so used to being in lockdown, I got a bloody speeding ticket for 136 kilometres an hour on the expressway because I was happy to get out of Auckland. I didn't even make it to Cambridge. So it was a $480 trip. Anyway. Yeah, I digress.
Oh, the rich and famous, see how they live,
Yeah. Famous, not rich.
Not now.
Not anymore.
Sort of fine.
Cool. Yeah. Opening it up to the floor. Any questions? Pita?
Good on, Max. Really engaging kōrero hoa. And Vaughnie, Māori are the problem at this point in time, bro. I hate to say that, to be honest, because as some of you may know, I also coach basketball in my spare time, and one of the kids that I coach is she's a doctor out in Papakura. I'm not going to name her name. I'm not going to give her up just yet. But the issues that she's been having with not only employees but also the wider community in that particular area has been a massive strain on her particular healthcare situation out there in Papakura. But to touch on what you said when you came back from LA, when you came back from the States, Max, and you said that you were dealing with local iwi in Waitara when you first came back. I mean, what made you implement and engage with the local iwi when you came back? And because at that particular point in time, I'm not quite sure when that was, but I'm assuming engagement wasn't very high on the list of certain individuals back in those days, if you know what I mean.
Diplomacy 101.
Well, that's Pākehās learnt back in the bloody early days, the settler days. You don't mess with those Maoris in Waitara. There was some pretty harsh times down there, and there was some big wars. I think you guys could probably teach me more about it, but they're good people. I'll tell you a quick story. I took over as the employment relations manager, and I'm going through the payroll, and it's a seasonal job, so people come and go. And what I picked up was this guy was getting paid for 2 years, and he never come to work. And I quickly said to the payroll lady who I was in charge of, I said, well, it's got to stop. Well, Max, it's been going on for a long time. Why? Well, I don't know, she said. And I said, well, crikey, he's important, Max. I don't care. No one doesn't work, doesn't get paid. That's it. Stop it now. Well, that was cool, and I was a big timer, and I was strutting around. And anyway, I got called into the big manager's office, the regional manager's office. Hey, what's the story? Would you cut that guy's pay? I said, yeah. And he said, I think you better reverse that. I said, why? He said, go and get some money. Go and get all the money you owe him. And it was like $30,000 or $40,000 we owed him. And you take it up to the marae. I said, why is that? Because he has influence in this community. All those Maori people down there, and there was 700 worked in that freezing works. They all know him and respect him, and he is part of this community. And we look after him because he is the man. Look, Max, anyone else, but you don't touch that person. So reluctantly, big timer Max, I took up a whole lot of money and took it to see him, and hung my head and said, look, I owe you an apology. I cut your pay, and I'm sorry about that, thinking, you didn't deserve it, man. You didn't do any work. Well, he took me a tour around the marae. He took me into the meeting house, took my shoes off. I bowed my head. I felt just huge honor to be treated, and he treated me so well. Gave me a cup of tea, got some food for me, and sat me down, and we had a long talk. I spent all day there, and but I loved the guy. And from that time on, I realized that this is the nub of the community. And I learnt as a Pākehā who didn't know much, and I still don't know much, how important it is, and how that is the nub of the community. And during that, I shared with him. I had to. I got the word before anyone else. Of course, I did, and I shared with him and the union what was about to happen, and in confidence. And they both looked after me and gave me guidance. And also, when I had to I didn't make the announcement. The regional manager did, but when I stood up beside them, they even said, "Do you want us to be there with you?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do that. And I'd like you to speak at these events as well." And the regional manager gave a very good speech. But also this guy from the marae, he gave a beautiful speech. And my respect and regard for him went right up. He deserved every cent he got of that pay for not working, every cent, because he looked after us. He looked after his people, and he called us up when we were wrong, and often he did that. He also helped the freezing works. We needed a poo pipeline to go into the ocean. He helped us with that. And told us, you sort it out. This is our fishing grounds. You make sure it goes right further and whatever. But we respected that, and he did make life easy. He was prepared to compromise, and he was a true leader. And it was because of him I learned, and from that's why we worked very, very closely with the marae thereafter.
Wow, awesome story.
Awesome story, Max. Awesome.
Well, you guys got to be a lot to be proud of, and I'm proud of being a Kiwi and the Maori heritage here. And I think that's something that all us Kiwis, us white Kiwis, are learning, that we've got something to be proud of. And that's where, coming from 60 years ago, is a big change I've seen in our world. And I think we're all suddenly waking up to what a wonderful place we got. And it comes down to the wonderful people that live here, and the culture and the people that you guys bring in the Maori community, and passing it on to us. Us Pākehā, I think we own the haka now, don't we? We try to.
I think the term is now, Max, is not Pākehā, it's tangata tiriti, so people of the treaty. So,
okay. I like that better, but yeah, I'm just used to the word Pākehā because that's all I've known all my life. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you for that.
Thanks. Good question, Peter. There's a question from Tamanuhiri. Do you want me to spotlight you in, mate?
Bring in Tamanahiri. I can't wait to see him.
Sorry, no questions.
Did you throw him under the bus, bro? There he is. There he is.
Was there a question from you, Tamanuhiri?
No.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I thought I seen that in the chat bar. Okay, if there's no questions from the floor, any rounding questions from our panel to Max?
I guess a question from me, Max. I mean, I know this stuff is continually evolving, but is there anything that we not seeing that could surprise us going forward?
Yeah, I think watch the hospital numbers.
Yeah.
If I think that's the key. Forget all the other numbers, the number of COVID cases, all that stuff means nothing anymore. But the hospital, if the hospital can't cope, Jacinda will panic. And I think that's where we could find ourselves. Well, she's going to do all sorts of strange things again. But I've got a friend he manages 2 of the hospitals here in Auckland, and he's quite confident we're going to cope. And he's got some contingencies up their sleeve. So all there, I think we'll probably get through it. I don't know if there's any more harsh legislation to come up with regarding COVID. I think what's happening now, they're backing away quickly, and I think the government's going to be embarrassed by some of the restrictions and the dismissals that they've actually imposed for people who are not vaccinated, because they'll end up having to get them back because we're just going to be out of staff.
Yeah.
The sooner they open the borders up, the better, and we try and get back to normal. But and we're very close to 90% vaccinated, so that time is coming closer, and we can get back to normal quicker. But look, another virus coming in. You know, the what do they call that
Omicron.
one?
Omicron's on its way.
Yeah, is scary, and we don't know what that is, and all indications are maybe it's pretty passive. So let's fingers crossed, and I think in the next few days we find that out from the WHO. That's not Doctor Who, that's the World Health Organization. And I think that'll be very telling for us. But there's maybe more to come. Who knows? It's a very changing world for us. And we're making history, folks.
Yeah. And you know, Max, it's a funny old thing, because Auckland was plunged into 120 odd days of lockdown because of one COVID case. And it's not funny when anyone dies, but when you look around what's going on and more people die of meth addiction or diabetes or actually gang warfare in Auckland at the moment, shootouts out in West Auckland every bloody day of the week. We're living in funny old times. We really are, you know, and it's just that the optic is this pandemic. So the learning to live with it and moving on is the bit that we're grappling with. How do we transition out of all of the restrictions and leave that behind? And get back to, you know, knowing that, because Omicron will come, you know, it will come. We know it's going to arrive. But Delta didn't kill as many people as we thought it would. So hopefully Omicron's, you know, not nearly as catastrophic. But yeah, it's interesting times.
It is very interesting. And I heard a theory the other day. This is nature saying we need to cull some of the population. I don't know if that's the case or not. But God, it's persistent, I've got to say. They keep bringing up these new variants, and they're out to get us some more. And yeah, so anyway, it's I don't know. I haven't suffered as much as some of the smaller businesses, but certainly it's very learning times for us all. And it's good to cope with hardship. I actually think we should embrace it and look forward to it, because our ancestors, our people who went through hardship have become up better. You know, it's like the old song, you know, it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And that's certainly, I think we need to gain from this. We're probably lucky we can get through it. My dad went through war, come out the other side, lived, and he was one of the lucky ones. And you know, and I respected him for that, and we all do, you know, for the people that have gone through hardship. So now's our turn. Why not? And bring it on.
Cool. Thank you for that, Max. Before we start to close off, if people wanted to get a hold of you for some advice, how would they get a hold of you?
So lovely. Thank you. So my business is called the Whitehead Group, but if you Google Max Whitehead, you'll find me all sorts of places, but certainly the Whitehead Group. But you can Google me. You can text me my phone number if you need it right now. Take it down and give me a call quietly tomorrow if you want to. 021 24/7 9393. I'll repeat that. 021 24/7 9393. Just ring me up, talk things through. I'm not going to charge you. If I need to represent you, maybe we'll then, but I'll talk to you first and get you to sign a document before I do. So feel free just to yarn and chat about things. And I'm here to help you. I want to help you. You guys have been so kind to me, made me feel so welcome. I would really appreciate to help you some. So let me do it, folks.
Cool. Thank you, Max. And before we hand over the last words for you, because in this panel you'll get the last words.
No.
Vaughn's last words will be the closing karakia.
Yeah, Vaughan, not you, bro.
So yeah, we just wanted to thank you, Max, just for coming on here. I do think that you know, sessions like this throughout these times should be on, nearly all the time and available to every small business, every business, and actually everyone out there. I'm surprised that it's not a daily thing that's funded by the state. So we just want to thank you, Max, for giving up your time. So ngā mihi mahana, ngā mihi aroha, kia koe. So that's a heartfelt thank you and a warm thank you to you, Max. So before I hand you over the last words, and after the last words, Vaughan's going to do a closing karakia. Those
Kia
are
ora,
his
bro. Kia ora.
Over to you, Max. Last words.
Righto then, look, I want to say thank you very much, and the warm welcome, I'm going to repeat it, has been absolutely delightful. The interesting questions, the intelligent questions, and some of the challenging questions is perfect. And the more you poke at me like that, the better it is. I can't answer everything, guys, and I'll put my hand up when I'm struggling, and I'll go and get the answer for you. But certainly, again, I just feel part of this little family, yours, and so thank you very much. It's the third time I've been here, and every time I've thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I have tonight as well. So what I'd like to do is to extend that welcome again. Contact me, use me as much as you like, or even argue with me quietly if you prefer to do it and say, hey, you were wrong back there, Max. I like it. I don't mind it, and we can get through it. So again, thank you very, very much, and well done for what you're doing for your community and putting these sessions on. I agree totally. It's a very good service you're offering, and I wish there was more for small business like this. But well done.
Awesome.
Thank you, Max. I'll hand the final prayers over to Vaughan. Kia koe, bro.
Yeah. Kia ora rāta. E te atua aroha manakitea tātou katoa kia whakahihi Māori. Manakitea tātou katoa kia maia kia te haere tonu. Manakitea tonu ne i o tātou tupuna. Ki mehe mātou kia koe e te atua. Ake, amene.
Amen.
Thanks, Vaughan. Thanks, Max.
All right, guys. Thanks very much. We'll see you next time.
Kia ora, Max.
Take it.
Thanks very much, man.
Thanks, Max. Appreciate it, bro.